All right. Welcome, everybody. Sean, I'm going to ask you, can you go ahead and share your screen again? I'll get us started. My name is Stephanie Fryer. I am our Director of Camps and Athlete Development here at US Rowing. What we're going to do tonight, excuse me, is I'll do a really quick introduction of our entire pathways system as a whole. And then I'm going to hand it over to our amazing PDC coaches, and they're going to talk more in depth specifically about Pathways Development Camp. And at the end, we will be able to answer all of your questions. You guys should be able to see the Q&A box, and you are welcome to type in your questions as we go if you have them. And then we will work to get them answered as we go. All right. Let's get started, Sean. Yep. So our whole US Rowing Pathways system is designed, as you see here, to identify, develop, and support our athletes over time. So the goal is to meet athletes where they are today and then to help them grow towards their long-term potential. The idea with all of this really is emphasizing that long-term goal. None of our camps are really focused on the short-term potential in the moment. There's no clear right starting point at any of our Pathways camps. Many national team athletes that you see today entered the path at very different points along the way. We're focused really on development throughout the system, building those skills that you need to succeed in the long term. And this graphic here gives you a pretty good idea of how our different U19 camps and opportunities relate to each other. Like I said, there's no right starting point, but each step does build towards the next, even though you might not move through the system. You know, athletes may move at different speed or enter at different points or come in at one point, skip a level, go to the next point. So what you'll see, so many of you joined our ID camps. They're all in the past now. We had our HP winter camp and our water ID camps that were on the water opportunities, and we also had our land-based ID camps. What we're talking about tonight is our Pathways Development Camp, PDC. We also have Selection Development Camp and Selection Camp that are the next two steps as we head towards the national team. This slide just gives you a really quick overview of the number of athletes that we have, the cost of each camp. These are the specific camps that we're having this summer. Whoop. It's all good. So you can see at the top, selection camp, selection development camp. They are pretty small camps. Each have 32 rowers per camp, and both have international racing opportunities. The camps we're talking about tonight are PDC camps. So we have two different camps. You've got the dates up here. One is mainly in June. The other one is in July. And these are much larger camps. We will have racing this year. We've had racing every year, but this year the racing is going to be live streamed, which we're pretty excited about. So like I said, really quick overview of the other camps, starting at the top. So our selection camp is for our athletes that are really ready to test themselves on the international stage. These are the athletes that, assuming they hit the performance standards, are going to head off and compete for Team USA at the U19 World Championships. I do want to highlight, we have some erg score standards up here. It's really easy to gravitate and catch on to the erg scores at each camp. But you'll hear us emphasize throughout the night, there is no single performance standard that automatically qualifies you for any specific camp or any specific opportunity. We really are looking at a full picture. So in general, most of the athletes that attend selection camp are sub 615 or sub 710, but there's always outliers and different reasons for that. And the next camp down is our selection development camp. So generally, these are the kids that have the next fastest erg scores. They're the ones that are almost ready to compete at selection level pace. They're almost ready to compete on that international stage. They just need a little bit more development. The camp is about the same size, 34 rowers. And then we've got 4 coxswains. So there's a few extra coxswains. These athletes all race in the International Rowing Challenge, which is what Canamex used to be. It's kind of the next evolution of Canamex. These are athletes that, you know, maybe they're newer to the sport, but have that big erg score and need a little bit extra development, or maybe they've been building their way up slowly through the system and are just ready to take that next step. And then PDC, obviously, we're going to go much more in depth, but as you can compare it to the next two, the previous two slides. So they're just that next level down. So these are the athletes that are really ready to take that next step in their own training, but not quite ready to race internationally yet, don't quite have the number of races or quite have the technical skills to be able to really test themselves in the racing strategy or the racing portion of the camp. This really is laying the groundwork for those future high performance opportunities. And it's really a chance to train like a national level athlete. So quickly go over how we apply to the system. You can always reach out to us if you have any questions. We have our camps@usrowing.com email address. And if you see Hugh up here as a panelist, he is the human being that you're talking to every time you email that. So he does a great job staying on top of that inbox. So please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. But so all of our applications are in the member portal. So this screenshot here is exactly what you see when you log into the portal. If you click on the camps that you see on the left-hand side of the page, that takes you to this page that shows you all the camps. These are the ID camps. I took this screenshot a while ago, but it'll say apply on the right-hand side. You click apply. It's really straightforward. As long as you have your erg score in there and your height and weight in there, that's all you have to do. We do send out our acceptances every Monday. We're on a weekly rotation right now. And this is what we require. So we've got the 2K score and the physical metrics. So for all rowers, you have to put those in or the system won't let you physically click application because we need to know at least a little bit about you before we can evaluate your application. And then a recording and a coach recommendation. These are particularly important for our rowers that are interested in the pairs camp, which you'll hear a lot more about later on. There's extra forms on the website for you to be able to submit a video of you rowing and to have your coach submit a recommendation for you. And then for coxswains, you have to submit a recording and a coach recommendation because just knowing your name is not enough for us to know what you're like as a coxswain. And again, those forms are on the website as well. And so when coaches are reviewing our applications, like I said before, we're not just looking at what's your 2K score and where do you slot. We're trying to look at the full picture of you as a rower. So how long have you been rowing? When did you start in the sport? What is your race experience? What are your results that you've had on the water? Especially when you're looking for selection camp, STC, and the pairs camp, we're really taking that coach feedback into account as well. And your rowing video, what do you look like as you row on the water? What is your technique like right now? And just to emphasize again, your 2K score doesn't get you an automatic invitation anywhere. We really are trying to look at that picture and get an idea of where you are in comparison to your developmental stage right now. I do want to make sure that we highlight that we have scholarships available. So the link for the scholarship is on our website. This provides financial assistance to athletes participating in all of our U.S. rowing camps and program. And the goal is to reduce the barriers to access and to help support that long-term involvement in the sport. So it's open to everybody. It's a pretty holistic review of the applications. We're not just looking at your 2K score. We're not just looking at your finances. We're looking at the whole picture of you. And I will note that the application is pretty straightforward, but it is kind of detailed, so it does take some time. And then those applications are reviewed every Friday, and those decisions go out on Friday so that you have some time to make your decision on camp once you get the scholarship decisions. And I know that our coaches are going to talk a little bit about this later on, but just to highlight what we're looking for when we're evaluating applications. It's not just your 2K, not just your speed, but we're also looking at your coachability and your adaptability. And this is something that, you know, if you take that first step and you join PDC, then this is feedback that our coaches all the way through the system are reaching out to our coaches that have worked with you. They're trying to assess the big picture of you. So do you have that long-term growth mindset? Can you get technical advice and progress throughout camp? And then we're looking for that consistent effort and professionalism that we expect from athletes that are participating in the system. All right, so that's enough from me. I'm gonna hand it over to Sean McCourt, and he's going to lead the next few sessions. And I think he's going to introduce everybody else that's on here that know much more about PDC than I would ever be able to tell you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean McCourt. I've worked with U.S. rowing at different levels and different forms for, well, I guess going on 15 years now. I am the Associate Director of the Pathways Development Camp here in Chattanooga, and I'm excited for all of you guys to join us tonight. So I have a couple of our coaches with us tonight. One is Amanda Polk Soboleski. Amanda um, is the co-director of the pairs subsect of the camp. She works with Micah Boyd, uh, former teammate of hers. Both are Olympic medalists, and they are the people who are going to be working with your kids. So Amanda is going to do both recruiting on the girls' side. I handle recruiting on the boys' side, and Amanda and Micah work together for the boys and girls pairs camp. Just to give you all an idea of how PDC works, is there are about 100 kids here. So we are looking, this is not a selection camp. This is not where you're going to come out and seat race like in the first 2 days and you're either here or there. But we are going to try to match you up with people of comparable ability so that you can learn at your own pace. We want to meet the athletes where they are and provide the proper level of guidance for the skills they have and the skills that we want them to acquire. Micah, Amanda, anything before we get going? All right. So let's talk about goals. We have a couple different goals for the camp, but our main goal is to provide foundational skills to the athletes. Some of the campers in this program are going to continue on their pathway quickly and rise up to the levels of the camp that Steph mentioned, either selection development or or selection in a year or two. For some kids, that journey may take a little bit longer, and they're going to need to improve their fitness. They're going to need technical skills. And, we want them to be able to go back to their own clubs or schools, a better rower, a better teammate with better habits that they can grow from. The other thing, that is probably most important, though, is we want them to fall in love with the sport. We want them to realize this is something they can do. They can walk into in a high school boathouse, and it's not something they have had to been doing since they were 5 or 6 years old, like baseball or basketball. But it's an opportunity to get out what they put in. So our camp's going to focus on a couple different things. The first is we want to get everyone onto the pathway, wherever that pathway looks like. We want to encourage them to be a part of the U.S. rowing pathway. We want to show them what kind of skills, training habits, nutrition habits, um, you know, training mentality, mindsets that elite rowers have. So we want to try to build those foundational skills here as well as improve their technical abilities. So when you look at how our staff is composed. We have a number of Olympians. We have college coaches. We have high school coaches, very seasoned high school coaches, so that you will hear feedback from a lot of different people. We try to rotate it around so that you will hear different voices and get different opinions on what you could do to better yourself. Also, there's the whole aspect of building relationships. I see my I coach for the Macaulay School here in Chattanooga, and I see the kids who have come through this program on my own team. They build all these little networks of people who check in with each other. The kids will check in with each other. Hey, I got a 2K PR. Oh, that's great. I'm going to try to get mine next week. And there is a lot of organic learning that goes on at this camp as well. when you get kids from all across the country coming in, sharing ideas, sharing training methods. Um, and then great thing about social media is after this camp, they all like to stay in touch. Um, and they all like to, you know, be involved in the sport, and hopefully we're fostering that love of the sport for them. So what to expect? Kind of what does typical days look like? Um, we will be on the water multiple times a day. Usually one practice will be a speed workout, one practice will be a steady state. This camp, we want to offer small boat opportunities. It's one of when you look at the pathway in general, one of the big focuses is to have small boat experience by the time you get up to the senior team levels. So we have kids who come here and they've never rowed a pair. We want to get them into a pair, or they never rowed a straight four, they've never sculled, whatever it is. We want to do a lot of small boat training. That doesn't mean that we won't have opportunities to get into big boats and race and whatever. We certainly will, but we're going to try to put the focus on small boat experience. I mentioned the high level coaching. We had, not just Olympians, but also Olympic coaches here last year, and we'll have the same as well. The former head of the Canadian women's rowing team, Al Morrow, is going to be with us this summer. Alan Bennett from Australia, former Olympic coach for Australia, was here last summer, as well as number of Olympic athletes and college coaches as well. Um, and then for the coxswains out there, we also have coxswain specific training where, they have their own coach, they have their own curriculum. Um, they're going to be more than just showing up and steering a boat for practice. We really want to try to develop them and give them the tools to make them a successful coxswain, whether or not it's on their own team or later on the pathway at a U19 team. So things to expect off the water. We do things like yoga, calisthenics, stretching, mental preparation, um, mental health and how to manage stress while training. All of these things are really important, especially with junior athletes, as they're trying to navigate the SAT, ACT, college applications, their own performance on their team. We really try to dive in and kind of have programming that addresses those needs for the athletes. We will do video review, analysis, different learning panels with the kids. There is time, I previously said this isn't where we are going to ground you down all day. There will be time for rest and recovery as well. I mean, obviously, to be an elite athlete, you do have to rest and recover and allow your muscles to recharge. There's also different activities for team bonding. We've done everything from cookouts, minor league baseball, games, river floats, a whitewater rafting trip. So I always subscribe to the mindset of work hard, play hard. If you're going to be here with us this summer, when you're not training and not working on your craft, we still recognize that this is your summer break, and we want to make sure that you have those organic opportunities to meet other kids and hang out. So we'll have some of that as well. So I'm going to turn to the pairs camp now. We started the pairs camp about 2 years ago. And as I said previously, with the different levels of PDC, the pairs camp is the highest level at PDC. Then we'll have a level called Tier 1 and a level called Tier 2. And they're going to be decided upon after we watch everyone row and we kind of look at your whole picture. But the pairs camp is application only. tier one and tier two, we will evaluate you. So I'm going to turn it over to Micah and Amanda and let them talk about the pairs program that they developed and what that looks like.
Thanks, Sean. And thanks everyone who is on the call. We really appreciate your time, and we encourage you after this to ask questions if we miss something. We'll be happy to answer. But in terms of the pairs camp, this is the second year that we are going to have this camp. This year, it will only be offered in Camp 1, and there's a slightly different selection process that has been from last year, which we are only going to accept the registered Pathways Development Camp attendees by May 1st. And so we're going to look at the pool of athletes who are already committed to the camp, Camp 1 of PDC, and we're going to promote, if you will, the top 16 women and top 16 men for those particular camps. The requirements for this is on the girls' side, the range for 2K is 720 to 739. And then on the boys' side, the 2K range is from 620 to 639. Now, if you are interested, have already accepted pairs, you already have this criteria of looking in this range for this particular pairs camp, we're going to ask you to take an extra step and submit a video to us that has good focus on the vision of your blade work at a practice, or it could be from a race. As long as we can get a good visual of what your rowing technique looks like, that will be very helpful for Coach Micah and I to assess whether or not you would fit for this pairs camp in the first camp. We also ask for a coach's recommendation, and or we could have a phone conversation with your coach, whatever is easiest. We're open to talking to coaches as well. And that's just to get an idea of a well-rounded athlete, coachable, as many of the descriptions that Coach Sean already described. Our expectations. Micah, would you like to go ahead and talk about our expectations?
Yeah, so expectations for this camp mostly is just we use small boats for a reason. And I think the expectation is that you should have a certain skill set already at this camp that might be above what some of the other kids might have in this particular Pathways camp. And it's for us to utilize kind of like your ability that you have now and get much better in the small boat. We try to focus on that so that you get the technique that you need to get closer to being in a selection development or a selection camp available. I think the other thing too is that some of our expectations are based off of just being able to, I think, like being able to think like an elite athlete, like be able to concentrate on that process of, we're going to do some long distance pieces, we're going to do some short distance pieces, we're going to do a lot of technique, we're going to do a lot of miles. And I think for us is to be able to have that mindset of you could still have fun after and during this camp away from the practices, but we're looking for people that can stay focused and improve while being coached by us. So that's kind of our expectations for the most part is being able to handle a workload and a mindset that can lead to improvement. And for coaches, on the boys' side, I will be the lead coach on the men, and I'll also have an assistant coach. His name is Gabe Winkler. Gabe used to be the head coach at Oregon State for a while, and he was on several national teams, all lightweight, mostly lightweight. I was on one Pan Am team as well, but he comes with a wealth of experience and a lot of college and respect him, or a lot of coaching experience in college, and respect him a lot in what he's able to do. And on the girls' side, Amanda.
Yeah, no problem. So Megan Calmo, which, if any of you have heard that name or familiar with that name, she is a four-time Olympian, which is pretty phenomenal feat in and of itself to go. I myself went 2 cycles and decided to retire after that. And she continued 4. So in and of itself, she especially has incredible techniques and advice to share with this, just enjoying the longevity of the sport. She also is a 2012 Olympic bronze medalist in the women's quad. However, in the 2016 cycle with myself, she was in the pair let's see, at least 2 world championships. So she brings a lot of pair, not only in selection, and that's how we were selected, as mentioned by Micah. That was our process to making it into the boats where we ultimately lied in the Olympics. But she also raced at the World Championships, and that is something that I had not had the experience of. So we have a very, very strong coaching crew for this pairs camp, and I'm really excited about having the opportunity to see, the athletes. Again, I want to just re-say the range, just in case you missed it. The 2K scores for the girls are 720 to 739, and then the 2K scores for the boys are ranging from 620 to 639. So again, if you're on the cusp and feel ambitious, I would encourage you to go ahead and give yourself another shot at getting in this range, registering to PDC, applying and hopefully getting the invite for PDC, registering for PDC by May 1st. And by May 7th is when we will send those 16 females and 16 males those official invitations for the pairs camp at Pathways Development Camp. So at this time, we're happy to answer any questions anyone has. Um, and you know what? Before we do that, Micah, why don't we mention the practice and what that looks like? So this year, because we'll have the male and the female groups at Camp One together, we will have a group in the morning in the pairs, and then a group in the afternoon in big boats, fours or eights. They will only be sweep rowing only. And the point of this is to transfer what you are learning in the small boats to then transferring it into the large boats, and hopefully feeling those different speeds, different size boats, and just how to handle each types of boat for steady state and racing pieces.
Yeah, the emphasis is still on the pairs, and its emphasis on small boats as well. We should have some straight fours with us as well. But yes, I know sculling, sweeping, mixing it all together. But for us, we're sweep only. We emphasize the sweep, but we emphasize the sweep mostly in the small stuff. Even previous years, we've emphasized pairs only, but occasionally we'll do some eights practices. It helps just to hone in some technique that we try to get done with. So in our practices, it helps to have a big, stable platform to kind of talk about the things that we're trying to improve within each athlete. And so for us, once again, mostly pairs, small boats, but it helps to kind of pepper in the eight to make it a lot more to add that technical focus.
Okay. I guess we are going to do some questions. Steph, have you guys been firing them in the chat or um
Yeah. So, Sean, if you want to go ahead and stop your screen share so that everybody can see your lovely faces.
sure.
Um, and some of the things that have come up in the Q&A are about arrival and departure times and procedures. So I know we answered a question about is the arrival date the first day of camp? And the answer is yes. So the arrival date for Camp One is uh, June.
Monday the 15th.
Yes, Monday the 15th, and the arrival day for Camp Two is June 29th.
Yes.
So that's the day that you should fly into camp or drive into camp. But can you speak a little bit about the departure and or arrival and departure procedures?
Sure. So I'll go backwards because you kind of talked about the arrival and I'll hit it back. But departure, so on the last day of the camp, that morning, that Saturday morning, we'll do our wrap up coach athlete meetings. Um, hand off any film that we have to hand off or any evaluations. We'll do room inspection, and we basically have to have the dorm shut down by 12 o'clock. We can take athletes to the airport, so we can transport athletes to either the Chattanooga airport or for athletes traveling to and from the airports in Atlanta or Nashville, there's a shuttle service called Groom Shuttle that we can take athletes to so they can make those airports. Um, in terms of move-in, I'm waiting on the exact time. It's either 10 o'clock or 12 o'clock. We're trying to figure that out now with the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. But basically, we'll have everyone move in, check in, and then we'll start the rowing sessions later that afternoon.
Perfect. And then I see the question in the chat, but there was another question in the Q&A asking about athletes for Camp One that are coming directly from Youth Nationals. And I answered that question just that it's really common. A lot of people can
Yep.
come from Youth Nationals, but can you speak a little bit more in detail about that?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely are as flexible as we can be, or we will work with you if your times don't exactly line up in the flight window. Um, so, you can contact me. Probably the easiest way to do it is either contact myself or contact Megan McCourt, who's on the website as well. She's actually the camp director and handles a lot of the timing of, arrivals and departures. But we can certainly work with getting athletes there.
And then there's one more question about travel and departure, and then we'll move on to training questions. But
Sure.
there's a new question in the chat of for the departure. I know we've mentioned several times that parents are encouraged to watch the racing on the website and in some of our emails. And the question was, is that still the case?
Yeah, I mean, we love having parents come out. We get a number of parents who come every year to watch the racing. Um, but yeah, I mean, we're hoping that by having live streaming this year, um, that the racing will be available to all the parents, even those who are unable to travel to Chattanooga for the camp. So yeah, we definitely love having parents around though.
Perfect. And then there's two questions related to training. So I'll ask them both at the same time. Actually, now there's a third question about training. So about this year, so somebody's asked, is there a difference between Camp One, the training that athletes get in Camp One versus Camp Two? And then there's also a question of this parent's son attended the OTC camp in 2024, and they're asking if this camp is going to be different.
Okay. So I'll do one at a time. So, um, the training from Camp One and Camp Two is going to be essentially the same. It follows the same U.S. rowing written and approved training curriculum that gets used across the board, for the entire pathway. So if you are going to youth nationals and you want to take that break for 2 weeks before you show up for Camp Two, that's totally fine. It's not like this is the heart of their camp and this camp is not. They're both going to follow the same pattern. So, okay, that was the first question. Second question was if someone attended in 2024, is it the same as 2026? Was that the question?
Yes, I believe so.
So, are there going to be similarities? Yes. But we're constantly rewriting the curriculum, trying to challenge the athletes and try to see what worked in previous years, what we could do better. I would also think that if you came 2 years ago, you would probably be in, a higher group with more comparable athletes just because you've been growing and developing for the past 2 years as well.
Okay, and I think the next question, maybe Amanda and Mike want to weigh in on. There's a pairs camp question. The question is mainly about when is the application due, which, I think we all say get your application in as soon as you can. You guys can always update us and email us when you have ERG score improvements. So don't let that, like, don't not apply because you're waiting on getting a better ERG score. But do you want to talk about a little bit more about that process of how you're choosing the pairs? I know we did a little bit already, but
Sure. So what we'll be looking at is once we have the full roster of the Pathways Development athletes who are already committed to the camp, we're going to look at and assess who are the top 16 in that pool. So whether if you are already registered for camp and put your deposit in, you could be again in the range of the seven, if you're a female, 720 to 739. And I think I'm seeing the question now, 740. She's close to 740 for this particular question. If your daughter is already applied and registered for camp, then by May 1st, that's when we will review and assess who those top 16 are. If you would like for her to have a shot, I encourage you to go ahead and add the video of her on the water with the vision of the blade work as close as possible with her also her technique. And then also to include a coach's recommendation, which there's a form on the Rowing the Pathways website, included if you scroll down to the pairs camp process and requirements. So I can encourage, and if she wants to go for, faster than 740, like Stephanie said, if she's already registered now and wants a look at that, I mean, why not go ahead and try for breaking 740 to even put herself in a better position for us to consider her for camp.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out too that like a lot of these guidelines are they're not rules, they're guidelines, right? So it's like for us, if we have a girl who's close to 740, then it really just depends on who applies to the camp. If there's a bunch of girls who applied that are in like the 720s for some reason, then obviously she needs to be better or than those ones that apply. So it really just depends on who we have in the application process to kind of figure out who it is. But once again, is that she rows really well. Like Coach Amanda said, if you have an application that shows us a coach recommendation and a video where we're like, oh, wow, this person rows really well, then obviously that is something to consider in this whole process. So once again, this isn't a live or die by that 739. It's just more like this is a helpful guideline for us because we're trying to find talent that's ready for this camp.
And we had a question in the Q&A about coxswains and asking how coxswain applicants are evaluated. So one, we have 2 coxswain forms that you need to fill out. So there's basically 3 steps for coxswain. So one, apply in the member portal to the camp so that we know which camp you're interested in. And then we have those 2 supplemental forms, which you can find on our website. And if you, for some reason, can't find them, just email camps at US Rowing and he will get them out to you. But basically, you need to fill out a little application that we ask you some questions about kind of your approach to coxing. And then you're also asked to provide some recordings of yourself. And then a coach recommendation is required as well. So there's 3 steps. And to answer the follow-up question about are all of our coxswain spots filled? No, they're not all filled. We just got our results back from our coxswain review. So we're starting those invitations this week. And then there's a new question, double checking that the pairs are in camp 1 only. Yes, the pairs, both men's or boys and girls pairs camps are only in camp 1 this year. And I think we don't have any more live questions here. Do you guys have anything like logistically or training wise that you think we haven't covered that you wanted to mention?
I'm just noticing a question, which I'm not sure if we touched on because, it scrolls, but did we talk a little bit about the conditioning and development perspective? Any concerns doing Camp 1 immediately after Nationals? If not,
feel free to talk more about that.
Yeah. So no, I would not have any conditioning or development perspective like concerns about that. We certainly, the first couple days, it's a big assessment for the coaches who are there, for the athletes to be put in their respective tiers, as Coach Sean mentioned earlier. And it's really helpful to take those assessments like they're not doing pieces right away. The coaches all are aware of, who we're at nationals and where they come from. And it's a very, very well done integrated start of a camp. But so I'll say, day one, day two is just kind of getting your feet wet in terms of, okay, who am I with? Where am I going? What's the process and routine for practice? And then day three, and I want to say like day two afternoon is when we really hit the ground running. So we don't waste a lot of time, getting the work in, but we do give a little bit of grace to making sure that travel has happened, racing has happened the previous weekend, and making sure that the athletes are healthy before we start the grind.
Absolutely. Hugh, do you want to jump in and answer that first question?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steph. So for anybody that's concerned about not getting emails, or again, if there's questions or concerns about registration or any of the logistics that are involved with this camp, please reach out to us directly. Again, that email address is camps@usrowing.org. I'll throw it in the chat again in just a second as well. So for the person that's asking, if you want to be more engaged with what's happening with camp, please send me your email address. I can add that to our email list. That way you're not missing any of the correspondence that we send out.
Yeah, and to answer one part of that question, if you are registered for camp and concerned because you didn't get any information about this webinar, that was actually by design, because this webinar we were trying to reach out to people that hadn't registered for camp yet. So you did not miss anything because you didn't get an email about the webinar. We have a question about the Coxswain's recordings and if we're looking for anything specific. We are not. In the application, there is a space for you to tell us what is in the recording. So you can describe, like, is it from a race? Is it from something specific, a specific piece in practice? What I will say is we understand that athletes at this stage, like, you're not always able to record everything. Everybody's practice setup is slightly different. One thing I will just request is that, like, it's audible, that it's not just launch noise, but we can actually hear you speaking. That's our one main request. If we just hear noise or static or boats, we don't really have anything to evaluate you on. So that's our challenge. So just make sure we can hear it. And then I think there was a question about, what is the schedule like? Well, they have practice over the weekends as well. I don't know which one of you wants to jump in there.
Practice is basically most days except for Wednesday and Saturday, twice a day, plus off the water sessions as well.
Perfect. And there was a question about if you've been accepted to Camp 1 but want to switch to Camp 2, is it possible? It's definitely possible. There's a little bit of logistics that we have to do behind the scene, and we can't technically move your money from one camp to the other. But that's an us problem to worry about just on tracking on our end. If you want to switch camps, that's absolutely possible. Just let us know. And then I would say if you're switching camps, when they start sending out the emails as we approach camp, just like double check to make sure we have your kid on the correct list of the camp that you're intending to apply or to attend actually in person. Please double check our work. All right. Do we have any other questions that have come in? I am not seeing anything. So we'll give it a couple minutes to let anybody pop up any questions that they have. Sean, Amanda, and Micah, do you guys have any closing thoughts or anything you wanted to talk about? Oh, we have a question about shuttles to the airports.
Okay, what's the question on that one?
Well, it's basically, are we going to send out more information? Yes, absolutely. We've got an athlete packet that we are Making Beautiful, and then it will be sent out to you very soon. That just has more information. But just to clarify on the shuttles, the shuttles from the Nashville airport and the Atlanta airport, we don't have coaches on, correct? Those are the athletes getting on themselves, and then we meet them at the
Yes,
shuttle
those
pickup.
it's a shuttle service that they would have to take themselves and book themselves from Nashville or Atlanta. But if they fly into Chattanooga, we can pick them up, no problem.
Okay. Yeah, so shuttles from the Chattanooga airport, you guys are driving and going back and forth. And from the two bigger airports, they've got to get on the groom on their own.
Correct.
So, yeah. And make sure they know which airport they're flying out of to go home.
That would be helpful.
Um, did we answer the question about pairs camp when pairs camp invites go out? I think we did. We've mentioned they start
May
getting
1st.
evaluated on May 1st and invites go out
Yes, that
May
kind of
7th.
good stuff.
Yeah, May
Okay,
7th, about a week after May 1st, we'll be evaluating. May 7th, the invitations officially will be out.
perfect. All right, so any closing thoughts from you guys?
I mean, I'm really excited. The more we talk about it and get closer to the camp itself. Um, but my best advice, I always say a couple things to parents when they're considering which summer program for their kid, because it is a big decision. We recognize that there's financial commitments, time commitments, training commitments. I always fall back on who is working with your kids. And if you look at our staff, I mean, it is a great staff full of high caliber individuals that are out there working with your kids day in and day out. Not just the Olympians, but some of the other coaches. We've had coaches who have been to Worlds. We've had coaches that have been to Junior Worlds, and everywhere in between. Um, so, as you consider and go through the process, feel free to reach out to myself, Amanda, Micah. We'd love to talk to you guys and tell you about the programming and what we do with the kids. So don't be afraid to reach out, hit us up. We'll follow up and tell you what we know.
Absolutely. There's one last question that has come in. Um, what percentage of athletes get accepted? That is a very hard question to answer.
I would say if I'm looking at it, it depends on the year. We do have, I always say we have guidelines, not necessarily rules, but I would say, thank you, Micah. But I always say that if we are going to go out or above those standards, you have to bring something to the table. Like you have to, your video has to be really good. Your physical metrics have to be really good. Um, it- you know, we definitely don't take everyone into this camp. Um, but I try to use my teacher approach when deciding who comes to this camp. I want to know who's going to, have that grit and growth mindset where grit is always going to overcome um, talent or ability. I want to see kids who are going to grow and they're high character individuals. Um, it's we have to look for more than just erg scores when we're handling and developing the future of the U.S. team system. The guys that we have, like I'm looking at people who were in this camp from when we first started this version of the camp in 2018. And we're seeing these guys on our under 23 teams, on our senior teams now. Um, so we take really seriously who comes to the camp. And we really want to make sure that if you do come to the camp, you're not over your head. You're in a position where you can learn, you can be successful, recognizing that success looks different for every athlete. but we want to make sure you come here and you have the ability to learn something. If you're not ready for that, we would rather you wait a year and say like, okay, well, maybe your physical metrics aren't there yet, or maybe your talent hasn't caught up to your body frame or whatever it is. We would rather you wait and try next year, um, so that you can be in that position where you can be successful.
Absolutely. And then I have one more question. Is there a collegiate discussion as part of the camp education while the athletes are at camp?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have that. That's you know, because we're not just trying to build athletes who, in one part we're trying to build athletes who are going to be future junior team members, but yeah, we also go into how recruiting works with them, what the cycles look like, what how to build your not only your athletic profile but also your academic profile. Um, and then, one of the biggest things we'll also talk to them about is your character profile, in the sense of, if you can't make it at a 2-week residential camp without getting in trouble, chances are, eh, a college coach may not be interested in you. The junior team coaches may not be interested in you. Like, all the rowing is a very small world. Coaches talk. So we highlight things like social media with the kids. If you can't control your social media, coaches don't, they're not going to be willing to recruit you. If their job is on the line because of your character, then that's something that they take into consideration when they're recruiting you. So we try to give them the numbers approach, we try to give them the character approach, and then we try to give them the athletic approach.
That's excellent. Those are definitely things that we're talking to kids about throughout the pathway, especially on the U19 level, is, when they're at our camps, and honestly, not just at our camps, but they're building a reputation for themselves that will go with them for the rest of their careers. And they have a choice over what that reputation is, that goes with them. One more question that Sean, you might be able to speak to, what do the coaches look like outside the pairs camp? Do you want to speak to any of the rest of the coaching staff for the kids that aren't in pairs camp?
Sure. I mean, we have a wide range. Like, for example, in session 2, Al Morrow, the former, like, he's not working with the pairs. He's working with tier 1 and tier 2 kids. Chris Chase, who's been a world level coach, he's going to be at both sessions, working with different different groups. Um, we have coaches from Exeter, Northfield, Mount Hermon, Navy. Um, it's an eclectic group in the sense of college coaches, high school coaches, and former Olympic coaches as well, working with the kids.
It's great. And I feel like the more we talk, the more questions that will come in. And I'm mindful that all of us get to do this again in 30 minutes. So I do want to uh, wrap it up here. But I want to thank everybody for jumping on. I hope you were able to get information and get all your questions asked. Again, if you have any more questions that we didn't get to or that you didn't want to ask in this session, please feel free to reach out to the camps@usrowing.org email address, and Hugh will be happy to help you. And if he can't answer it, one of us on this call will be able to answer it, and we'll get your questions answered. Thank you guys for jumping on, for all the panelists. We did record this, so if any of you guys, I know a few people had questions that their kids couldn't join. This has been recorded, and we will get it on the website as quickly as we can, hopefully by tomorrow, but we got to process it a little bit too. So